"Leave me, I can't walk," the CEO whispered as smoke swallowed the stairwell and the people who praised her minutes earlier kept running. But the man who turned back was not a board member, a security chief, or someone with power. He was Caleb Rowan, a widowed maintenance worker finishing another night shift before going home to pack his daughter's school lunch. Vivian Hawthorne had built a company that helped strangers stand again, yet one hidden injury had left her terrified of being seen as weak. Caleb had spent years carrying grief no one noticed. What happened between them that night would expose a dangerous lie, reveal a forgotten sacrifice, and change the meaning of strength for everyone inside that tower. Stay to the end, because this is not only a rescue story. It is about dignity, second chances, and the courage to let someone stay. Like the video and tell us where you're watching from. Hours before smoke filled the stairwell, before Vivian Hawthorne whispered that she could not walk, Caleb Rowan was standing barefoot in a narrow kitchen cutting a peanut butter sandwich into 2 careful triangles. It was 5:10 in the morning. Below the apartment, the laundromat had already begun its daily rhythm. Washers churned behind the floorboards, pipes knocked inside the walls. Somewhere in the alley, a delivery truck coughed awake and rolled toward downtown Raleigh. Caleb moved quietly beneath the yellow light above the stove. He placed the sandwich into a plastic container, added apple slices dusted with cinnamon, then folded a paper napkin around a small handwritten note. "Be brave enough to be kind today." He tucked it beside the fruit. On the counter sat 2 coffee mugs. Steam rose from one. The other remained untouched near a framed photograph of a woman smiling beneath a maple tree. Rachel Rowan had been 34 when the photograph was taken. Her dark hair was lifted by the wind, and one of her hands rested over the beginning of a laugh. Caleb had always loved that picture because Rachel seemed caught between stillness and motion, as if she might step out of the frame if he waited long enough. A bedroom door opened behind him. 9-year-old Lily Rowan entered the kitchen wearing pajama pants covered in tiny planets and 2 socks that did not match. She climbed onto a chair and looked at the counter. Her eyes settled on the second mug. "You made Mom coffee again." Caleb followed her gaze. For a moment his hand remained around the knife. "Looks that way." Lily slid from the chair, carried the untouched mug to the sink, and poured it out without making a ceremony of it. She had learned early that grief was easier to live beside when no one forced it to explain itself. Caleb closed the lunch container. "You ready for your presentation?" Lily's expression brightened. She ran toward the couch and returned carrying a homemade model of a nerve cell mounted on blue poster board. The cell body was made from a foam ball painted purple. Pipe cleaners twisted outward like branches. A long yellow cord represented the axon. One section had been repaired with silver tape. Caleb examined it. The cat attack left permanent damage. He was jealous of your scientific achievement. He doesn't respect education. Caleb smiled. The sound of it was small, but Lily noticed. She always noticed. She placed the model on the table and adjusted one of the pipe cleaners. Mrs. Dale said the best projects might be displayed at Hawthorne tonight. Caleb opened the refrigerator. "I heard. You'll come see mine, right?" He paused with the milk carton in his hand. His night shift began before the student demonstration ended. He had already asked Travis Boone for 15 minutes away from the mechanical corridor. Travis had responded with a look that made the answer unnecessary. Caleb poured milk into Lily's glass. "I'll find a way." "That means maybe. It means I'll find a way." Lily studied him with the serious expression she used when deciding whether adults deserve trust. Then she nodded. Caleb turned toward the stove just as his phone vibrated against the counter. The landlord's name appeared on the screen. He lowered the volume and stepped into the hallway. "Morning, Mr. Harlan." The voice on the other end was already irritated. Caleb listened without interrupting. The rent was 6 days late. The building owner was tired of promises. The laundromat's heating bill had gone up. Everybody had problems. "I know," Caleb said quietly. "I'll have the rest by Friday." The voice sharpened. Caleb glanced through the doorway. Lily was sitting at the kitchen table pretending to study her model. "I understand." He ended the call. When he returned, Lily had opened her school folder. A permission slip rested beneath her hand. The 7th grade science trip cost $75, even though Lily was only in 4th grade and the paper clearly belonged to the advanced student program she had recently entered. She saw Caleb looking at it. "I don't really want to go." You've talked about that research lab for 3 weeks. It probably smells weird. Most good laboratories do. I can go next year. Caleb dried his hands on a towel. The permission slip disappeared beneath her notebook. He did not pull it back out. He did not tell her that children should not worry about money. Lily knew enough to recognize a lie when it was dressed as comfort. Instead, he reached into her folder, took the paper, folded it once and slipped it into his shirt pocket. I said I'll find a way. Lily looked down at the table. Okay. Caleb touched the top of her head. The washing machines continued turning below them, full of other people's clothes, other people's stains, other people's ordinary lives. Across the city, 30 floors above the quiet streets, Vivian Hawthorne sat on the edge of her bed and waited for her left foot to remember the floor. Her penthouse faced the waking skyline. The first light of morning moved between the buildings and touched the glass walls of her bedroom. Everything around her was pale, clean, and expensive. The bed had been made on one side. A silk robe rested perfectly across a chair. No photographs stood on the nightstand. Vivian pressed both feet against the hardwood. Her right leg held. Her left leg remained distant, heavy, almost borrowed. She placed one hand on the mattress and stood. The room tilted. Her knee folded without warning. Vivian caught the bedpost before she hit the floor. She stayed there, breathing through her nose, waiting for the numbness to retreat. The clock on the wall read 5:46. She had 14 minutes before her physical therapist expected a video call. Vivian straightened. She crossed the bedroom without assistance, each step measured and silent. At the bathroom sink, she gripped the marble edge and looked at herself in the mirror. Her face revealed nothing. That had taken years of practice. 3 years earlier, on a rain-soaked highway outside Durham, a delivery van had crossed the center line and struck the rear side of her car. The collision had damaged nerves near the lower spine. The surgeon called the outcome fortunate because she retained movement. Vivian had hated that word. Fortunate was what people said when they wanted gratitude to erase pain. Some mornings she could walk for miles. On others, her left leg trembled after 10 steps. There were days when sensation disappeared below the knee and returned an hour later without explanation. There were meetings when muscle spasms seized beneath the conference table while she continued discussing quarterly projections. The board knew she had been injured. They did not know the injury had never fully healed. Vivian opened a tall closet. Behind 3 winter coats stood a slim graphite cane. She reached toward it. Then her phone rang from the bedroom. Her assistant, Marissa Cole, spoke quickly. The board moved the press briefing to 7:30. Graham says the federal delegation may arrive early. Vivian looked at the cane. Tell Graham I'll be there at 7. You have therapy at 6. Cancel it. There was a brief silence. Vivian, Dr. Mercer said you shouldn't skip another session. Vivian removed a pair of black heels from the shelf. Dr. Mercer does not run Hawthorne Neural Systems. No, you do. The words were loyal, but tired. Vivian ended the call. She placed the cane back behind the coats and closed the door. By 7 that morning, Hawthorne Neural Systems had become a machine built from light glass and controlled urgency. Employees hurried through the lobby carrying presentation tablets and sealed equipment cases. Technicians tested screens inside the demonstration hall. Florists arranged white orchids along a stage framed by the company's silver emblem. Above the stage hung the words Vivian had approved herself. Movement with dignity. The Phoenix mobility frame stood beneath a circle of white light. It was slender, polished, and nearly silent. Sensors traced the shape of a patient's hips and legs. A central processor read muscle intention and adjusted support in real time. The machine did not merely move a person's body. It responded to the body's attempt to move itself. For Vivian, Phoenix represented 12 years of research and every argument she had survived since becoming chief executive. For Graham Voss, it represented an asset worth selling. He stood inside a glass conference room overlooking the demonstration floor, speaking with 2 members of the board. His silver hair was perfectly arranged. His charcoal suit carried no wrinkle. He held a paper cup of coffee, but never drank from it. The federal contract changes our valuation, Graham said. Once it is announced, any discussion of restructuring becomes significantly more complicated. One board member frowned. Vivian has enough votes to expand the access program. For now, the program has public support. Public support does not cover manufacturing losses. Graham turned toward the stage below. Vivian entered the hall surrounded by assistants. She wore a cream suit and black heels. No cane, no visible brace. Her posture was flawless. The board member followed Graham's gaze. She looks healthy. Graham's expression remained neutral. She looks prepared. There was a difference, and Graham knew it. 2 weeks earlier, he had received a private proposal from Bellwether Medical Holdings. Bellwether wanted exclusive licensing rights to Phoenix. The acquisition would close 3 community research programs and end Vivian's plan to provide low-cost units to military hospitals and uninsured rehabilitation centers. In return, Graham would become president of the merged medical technology division. His compensation package would exceed $8 million. Vivian had refused even to review the offer. Graham placed his untouched coffee on the table. Tonight requires precision. Down on the demonstration floor, Caleb Rowan pushed a tool cart toward the East Service corridor. He had changed into his Navy maintenance shirt after dropping Lily at school. A temporary seam in one sleeve showed where Rachel had repaired it years earlier. Nobody else would have noticed. Caleb always did. He stopped at a fire door on the 32nd floor and pressed the release bar. The door moved half an inch, then locked. He pressed it again. Nothing. Caleb removed the panel cover and examined the wiring. A red indicator light blinked where a green one should have remained steady. He tested the backup release. The lock disengaged, then immediately sealed again. Behind him, polished shoes crossed the tile. Travis Boone approached with a radio clipped to his belt, an irritation already visible on his face. "You're still on that door. It's failing. It passed inspection. 6 months ago." Travis glanced at his watch. "The floor closes to maintenance at 4. Caleb held the panel cover aside. "If the main power drops, this lock may seal instead of opening. The backup will release it. The backup is the part failing." Travis lowered his voice. "Do you know how many people are in this building tonight? That's why the door needs to work. Do you know how much this launch is worth?" Caleb looked at him. Travis exhaled through his nose. "Mark it for repair tomorrow. It needs to be taken offline now." "Not happening." Caleb pulled a paper work order from his pocket and wrote "unsafe" across the center in block letters. Travis's jaw tightened. "Sign the temporary clearance." "No, Caleb, no." At the far end of the corridor, Graham Voss stood beside an open conference room door. He appeared to be checking a message on his phone. His eyes remained on Caleb. Caleb tore the duplicate copy from the work order pad and placed it in his shirt pocket. Graham watched where it went. At 2:15 that afternoon, Vivian's private elevator stopped between the 28th and 29th floors. The light stayed on, but the floor indicator went blank. Vivian pressed the emergency button. Nothing happened. She tried the call panel. Static answered. The numbness in her left leg had returned 10 minutes earlier. She had been alone when it began, which normally would have been a relief. Now the elevator walls seemed to narrow around her. She gripped the rail. Her cane stood beside her, hidden inside a long garment bag. The elevator dropped half an inch. Vivian's hand slipped. The garment bag fell open. The cane struck the floor with a sharp metallic sound. A voice came through the service panel. "Ms. Hawthorne." She looked toward the speaker. "Who is this Caleb Rowan? Building maintenance. Get the elevator moving. I need you to stay away from the doors. I am aware of elevator safety." "Good. That saves time." Vivian almost responded, but a scraping noise came from above the ceiling. Caleb's voice remained calm. The brake caught. "I'm resetting the upper relay. You may feel a small movement." I already felt one. That was not the small one. The elevator shifted. Vivian tightened her grip. A few seconds later, the car rose slowly and stopped level with the 29th floor. The doors opened. Caleb was kneeling beside the exterior control panel with a screwdriver between his fingers. He looked into the elevator. His gaze moved from Vivian's face to the cane on the floor. Vivian felt the old instinct rise inside her. Control the room before the room controls you. Caleb stepped inside, and picked up the cane. He held it out to her. No surprise, no pity, no carefully manufactured blindness. Vivian accepted it. "You didn't see that." Caleb glanced at the open panel. "I saw an elevator fail. And the cane." He nodded toward it. "Looks like it was working." Vivian studied his face. He was not mocking her. That made the answer more difficult to dismiss. She stepped out of the elevator. Her left leg trembled once. Caleb noticed but did not reach for her. "Keep this car closed," he said. The relay burned unevenly. The building team cleared every elevator yesterday. The building team wanted every elevator cleared yesterday. Vivian's eyes narrowed. "You're part of the building team, not the part that signs things without fixing them." A cardboard model rested against Caleb's tool bag. Purple foam, yellow cord, silver tape. Vivian pointed toward it. "What is that, my daughter's science project?" She made it twice. The first one was destroyed by a cat with no respect for neuroscience. A laugh escaped Vivian before she could stop it. The sound surprised both of them. For 1 second, the polished hallway felt less like a place designed for performance. Caleb smiled faintly. Vivian straightened. "Close the elevator." "Yes, ma'am. And send me the written fault report. I already sent it to operations. Send it to me." Caleb looked at her again. This time, the look carried recognition. Not of her title, of her decision. "I will." At 6:38 that evening, the building filled with donors, physicians, investors, reporters, and families invited to witness the Phoenix demonstration. Lily arrived with her teacher and 6 other students from Oak Ridge Elementary. She wore a yellow cardigan over her best blue dress and carried the repaired nerve cell model with both hands. Caleb saw her from the upper edge of the lobby. He raised one hand. Lily lifted the model as high as she could. Caleb pointed toward it, then pressed one hand over his heart. Her smile reached him across the room. A radio call ordered Caleb to the east mechanical corridor. He looked toward the student display area, then back at the service doors. Duty won because it always did. He placed his employee badge beside an open control cabinet while checking a pressure sensor. A technician called his name from the adjoining room. Caleb stepped away for less than a minute. When he returned, the badge was gone. He searched beneath the cabinet, inside his tool bag, and along the corridor. Nothing. At 6:42, he found Travis near service elevator 3. "My badge is missing." Travis continued typing on his tablet. "Get a temporary pass. I left it beside the east control cabinet." "Then you misplaced it." "I did not." Travis finally looked up. "The launch begins in 18 minutes. I'm not shutting down credentials because you can't keep track of yours. Deactivate the badge. I'll handle it." When Travis stepped closer, "Go to the 38th floor, check the pressure warning, and stay there until I call you." Caleb looked at the tablet in Travis's hand. "Log the report." "I said I'll handle it." Caleb checked the wall clock. 6:42. He wrote the time on the back of his temporary pass. As he walked away, Travis watched until the service doors closed. Then he entered the executive stairwell. Graham waited inside. Travis removed Caleb's badge from his pocket. His fingers shook. "This is too far." Graham took the badge. "It is a controlled interruption. The fire door system is unstable for 90 seconds. Rowan filed an unsafe report. Graham's face hardened. "Then his badge appearing in the control room will make the explanation easier." Travis did not take his hand back. "You said she would stumble on stage. That's all. That is all. What if the lock override spreads? It won't. You don't know that." Graham placed the badge against Travis's palm and closed his fingers around it. "Vivian intends to give away the most valuable technology this company has ever produced. If she succeeds tonight, hundreds of millions of dollars disappear into clinics that cannot pay for them. They're veterans and patients. They are liabilities." Travis looked toward the stairwell door. Graham's voice softened. "You owe $180,000. Your bank has already begun foreclosure proceedings. I can make that problem disappear." Travis's breathing changed. "And if I refuse," Graham adjusted the cuff of his shirt, "then by morning your problem will be larger." At 6:58, Travis entered the restricted control room using Caleb's badge. Downstairs, Vivian stood behind the curtain near the Phoenix stage. Marissa adjusted the microphone cable at her collar. "You're pale. I'm under theatrical lighting. Your leg." Vivian looked through the curtain. The demonstration hall was full. Federal representatives occupied the front row. Board members sat behind them. Cameras faced the stage. Graham stood near the rear wall, watching. Vivian pressed her left heel into the floor. Sensation moved faintly through her foot. "Enough. I'm fine." Marissa did not believe her. Vivian stepped onto the stage. Applause rolled through the room. At the back of the hall, Lily stood beside her science project and searched for her father. On the 38th floor, Caleb opened a pressure panel and found no fault. Inside the control room, Travis held his hand above the override switch. Graham's voice came through his phone. Now. Travis closed his eyes and pressed the command. The lights vanished. The building inhaled once in darkness. The alarms began before the emergency lights found the room. For one breath, the demonstration hall remained completely black. Then red lamps flashed along the walls, turning every face into a sequence of fear and shadow. Someone screamed near the rear doors. A glass struck the floor and shattered. The Phoenix mobility frame froze beneath the stage lights, its silver supports locked in place like the bones of some unfinished machine. Vivian stood behind the podium with one hand pressed against its edge. Her left leg had gone numb, not weak, not painful, gone. The sensation disappeared so completely that she could no longer tell whether her shoe was touching the floor. People rushed past the stage. Chairs scraped across the polished concrete. A security officer shouted for everyone to use the marked exits, but his voice vanished beneath the alarm. Marissa reached for Vivian. "Take my arm." Vivian stepped away from her. "I am fine." The lie came automatically. She took one step. Her right leg carried her weight. Her left followed half a second too late. Smoke began slipping through the ventilation grates above the stage. The audience changed at once. Confusion became panic. A federal representative pushed through the aisle. 2 board members abandoned the front row without looking back. Graham stood near the rear wall, his face lit red, one hand resting calmly against his phone. Vivian saw him. For one strange moment, while everyone else was moving, Graham remained still. Then Marissa grabbed Vivian's wrist. "We have to go." Vivian pulled free. "Get the guests out. What about you? I know the building." Another wave of smoke pushed across the ceiling. Marissa hesitated. Vivian pointed toward a family near the side exit. "Help them." Her assistant stared at her for one more second, then turned and ran. Vivian moved towards the executive stairwell. She chose it because fewer people would see her. The decision was instinctive, private, and immediate. Even with alarms screaming through the building, she was still protecting the secret. The stairwell door closed behind her. The concrete space was colder than the demonstration hall. Red emergency lights pulsed above each landing. Smoke curled beneath the door on the floor above, thin at first, then thicker. Vivian gripped the polished steel rail. She forced her left foot onto the first step. Nothing. Her body knew the leg was there, but the leg no longer answered. She shifted her weight and moved down another step. Her heel caught. The shoe twisted beneath her. Vivian reached for the rail, but her hand closed on empty air. She fell hard against the landing. Pain struck her hip and traveled up her spine. Her shoulder hit the wall. For several seconds she could not breathe. Footsteps thundered above. The stairwell door opened and 3 executives rushed through. Vivian lifted her head. "Help me." The first man slowed. He was a member of the board. He had toasted her leadership less than an hour earlier. His eyes moved from her face to the smoke gathering overhead. Another alarm sounded. "Security is coming," he said. Then he continued down. A woman in a silver dress followed him. She looked directly at Vivian, pressed one hand over her mouth, and kept moving. Vivian tried to stand. Her right foot found the floor. Her left leg folded beneath her again. The pain was not what frightened her. It was the silence after the footsteps disappeared. She was alone in a building bearing her family's name. Below her, Caleb Rowan had one hand beneath the elbow of an elderly donor and the other against the stairwell wall. "Keep your breathing slow," he said. The man coughed into a handkerchief. "I left my wife upstairs. She came down with the medical staff. I saw her blue coat." "You are sure?" "Yes." Caleb was not sure. He had seen 3 blue coats and only one elderly woman, but certainty was sometimes the only useful thing a frightened person could hold. A security guard appeared on the next landing. "This way. Keep moving." Caleb transferred the donor's arm into the guard's grip. "Sit him upright once you reach the lobby. Do not let him lie flat." The guard nodded impatiently. Then Caleb heard a sound above them. Not a scream. A cough. Then something metallic struck the floor. Caleb looked up. The stairwell above was thickening with smoke. The guard grabbed his sleeve. "Do not go up there. Someone is still there. Executive stairwell. Security is clearing it." Caleb looked at the empty steps. "No one is clearing anything. You are not authorized." Caleb pulled his sleeve free. Fire does not care who is authorized. He started climbing. The smoke grew heavier with every flight. Caleb covered his mouth with the inside of his shirt and kept low near the rail. The emergency lights flashed against the walls, breaking the stairwell into red fragments. At the next landing, he found a broken high heel. One flight above, he saw Vivian. She sat against the wall with her right hand wrapped around the rail. Her left leg was bent beneath her at an unnatural angle. Smoke moved above her head like a low gray ceiling. Caleb stopped several feet away. Ms. Hawthorne, her eyes found his uniform. He saw recognition, then shame. "Leave me." Her voice was barely louder than the alarm. Caleb crouched. "Did you hit your head? You need to go. Did you lose consciousness? No. Any pain in your neck or back?" Vivian tightened her grip on the rail. "I said leave me." A burst of smoke pushed through the door above them. Caleb removed his work shirt, leaving a gray undershirt beneath it. He folded the fabric and placed it over Vivian's mouth and nose. She pushed weakly at his hand. "I cannot walk." Caleb looked at her leg, then at the smoke, then back at her face. Then walking is not the plan. He reached toward her ankle. Vivian recoiled. "Do not touch me." Caleb stopped immediately. His hands remained visible. "I need to know where you can feel pressure." Her breathing came too fast. "I do not need an examination. You need to get out of this stairwell. I know what I need." "Then tell me what you can feel." Something in his voice reached her. It was not command. It was focus. Vivian closed her eyes. "My hip, my thigh. Nothing below the knee. Any sharp pain in your lower back. No, can you move your toes?" She tried. Nothing happened. No. Caleb nodded once. "I am going to straighten your leg enough to lift you. Tell me if the pain changes. You will hurt yourself. I will manage. I am serious. So am I." He moved one hand beneath her calf and the other behind her knee. His touch was careful, precise, and without hesitation. Vivian watched his face. He was not afraid of her injury. He was not fascinated by it either. He treated her body as something that belonged to her even while helping her move it. Caleb eased her leg forward. Any pain, number, numbness, changing, no. He slipped one arm behind her back. "Put your arm around my neck." Vivian looked toward the smoke above them. Then she looked at him. "I am too heavy." Caleb almost smiled. "No, you do not know that. I do." He placed his other arm beneath her knees. "You have been carrying too much alone. That is different." The words struck somewhere deeper than the fall. Before Vivian could answer, Caleb lifted her. Her arms closed around his neck by instinct. The movement sent pain through her hip. She gasped. Caleb stopped. Back hip. Sharp or dull sharp. Getting worse. No. He adjusted his hold. The pain eased. Vivian stared at him. "You have done this before." Caleb began descending. "A long time ago, where save your breath." She should have resented the answer. Instead, she rested her cheek briefly against his shoulder and listened to him count the steps. 4. He turned on the landing. 5. His breathing stayed controlled. 6. The smoke made the stairwell smaller. Employees pressed themselves against the walls as he passed. Some recognized Vivian first. Others recognized Caleb. A young executive with a phone raised in front of her lowered it when Caleb looked at her. "Clear the landing," he said. The words were quiet. Everyone moved. Vivian watched their faces. These were people who interrupted her in meetings, challenged her projections, and delayed decisions until they could attach their own names to them. Now they obeyed a maintenance worker without question. Not because of his badge, because he knew what to do. At the next flight, a woman sat against the wall, coughing. Caleb lowered Vivian carefully onto a dry section of the landing. Vivian grabbed his arm. "What are you doing? She cannot breathe. You cannot carry both of us. I am not leaving her." Caleb knelt beside the woman. Her eyes were unfocused. Her breaths came in short, shallow pulls. He loosened the scarf around her neck and positioned her upright. "Look at me." The woman coughed. "I cannot." "Yes, you can. Keep your shoulders down." He placed 2 fingers near her wrist, counted silently, then turned toward a man standing nearby. "Take her under the arms. Do not lift by the wrists." The man stared at him. "Me. You are standing. She is not." The man obeyed. Caleb guided his hands into position. "Stay with her until you reach the paramedics." The woman clutched Caleb's sleeve. "Thank you." He nodded and returned to Vivian. She was watching him differently. "What were you?" Caleb lifted her again. "Busy. That is not an answer. It is the one I have." They continued down. On the next landing, a child's cry echoed behind a closed door. Caleb stopped. The door handle would not move. A small voice called from the other side. Mom Vivian tightened her arms around Caleb's neck. "There is a child in there. I know. Put me down." Caleb looked at the narrow landing. Smoke was beginning to descend from above. "There is no time." "Then make time." He looked at her. Vivian's face had changed. The fear was still there, but it was no longer pointed inward. Caleb lowered her beside the wall. He gave her his flashlight. "Keep the beam at the bottom of the door." Vivian aimed the light. Caleb removed a flat tool from his belt and forced it into the lock. The child began crying harder. Vivian leaned closer to the door. "What is your name, Evan?" "Evan, my name is Vivian. Can you see the light under the door?" "Yes." "Good. Stay low and keep looking at it. I want my mom. I know." "Where is she?" Vivian glanced at Caleb. He was working the tool against the lock, his jaw tight. "She is looking for you," Vivian said. "We are going to help her find you." The lock clicked. The door moved half an inch, then caught. Caleb drove his shoulder against it. Metal groaned. The door opened wide enough for a small boy to crawl through. He wore a blue backpack with a dinosaur patch. Vivian held out one hand. Evan ran toward her and pressed himself against her side. Caleb checked the room beyond him. Empty. He closed the door against the smoke. "Can you walk?" Caleb asked. The boy nodded. "Hold her hand." Evan looked at Vivian. She gave him the flashlight. "You are in charge of the light." The boy gripped it with both hands. Caleb lifted Vivian once more. She reached down and took Evan's hand. Together they descended, Caleb carrying her while she guided the child. At the next landing, a nurse rushed upward. "Evan," the boy screamed. "Mom!" He released Vivian's hand and ran into the woman's arms. The nurse pulled him against her chest, crying into his hair. She looked at Caleb. "I thought he was behind me." "He is safe," Caleb said. Vivian watched the mother and son hold each other. Something tightened behind her ribs. Caleb turned. "Ready?" Vivian nodded. He lifted her again. This time her arms went around him without hesitation. They moved faster now. Caleb's steps remained steady, but Vivian could hear the change in his breathing. The smoke was wearing him down. "You need to rest." No, that was not an order. It sounded like one. Despite everything, Vivian almost laughed. Then Caleb's foot slipped on a wet step. His shoulder struck the wall. Vivian held him tighter. "Caleb." It was the first time she had said his name. He froze for half a breath. Then he straightened. "I have you." Vivian looked at the sweat along his temple and the soot beneath his eyes. "I know." The answer settled between them. At the 32nd floor, they found Travis standing beside the emergency door with a radio in his hand. His expression changed the moment he saw Caleb. Not relief, fear. "Why are you on this stairwell?" Caleb stopped. She was alone. "You were assigned to the East Mechanical Corridor. You sent me there." Travis looked toward Vivian. "Ms. Hawthorne's security is waiting below." Vivian studied him. His shirt was damp beneath the collar. His right hand shook around the radio. "Why is this door locked?" Caleb asked. "It is not." Caleb pushed the release bar. The mechanism clicked but did not open. "It is sealed from the control side." "That is impossible." Caleb examined the indicator panel. A small screen flickered. An employee number appeared. His number. Vivian saw it. "So did someone else," she said. Travis's face lost color. The screen went black. Caleb turned toward him. "My badge was stolen." Travis lifted the radio. "This is not the time. It became the time when people got trapped." Travis took one step back. "Get her to the lobby." Caleb looked at him for another second, then returned his attention to Vivian. He forced the manual release with his tool. The door opened. Cooler air entered the landing. Beyond it, the lower stairwell was crowded but clear. Vivian held Caleb's gaze. "Your badge. I reported it missing." To him. "Yes." She looked back at Travis. He was already speaking into his radio. "Security to the main lobby. Prepare to detain Caleb Rowan." Vivian's head snapped toward him. On whose authority, Travis did not answer. Caleb carried her through the door. The lower they descended, the more people stared. Vivian heard whispers moving ahead of them. Her name, her condition, his name, maintenance. At the final landing, the lobby doors stood open beneath a white flood of emergency light. Rain struck the glass walls beyond them. Reporters crowded behind the security line. Vivian felt her body tighten. "Put me down." Caleb kept walking. "Not here, before we go out there." "No," her voice sharpened. "They cannot see me like this." Caleb stopped one step before the lobby. For the first time since finding her, he looked directly into her eyes. "They already see you. You do not understand what this can cost me. I understand what pretending costs." Vivian stared at him. The alarms continued behind them. People moved around them. For one quiet second, the stairwell seemed to hold only the two of them. Then Caleb carried her into the lobby. Every camera turned. Flashbulbs burst against the marble. A paramedic guided Caleb toward a bench. He lowered Vivian carefully, keeping one hand behind her shoulders until she was stable. "Do not move the leg until they test sensation." Vivian still held the front of his shirt. Neither of them noticed at first. Then her fingers opened. "Who are you?" she asked. A smooth voice answered from behind Caleb. "That is exactly what we need to determine." Graham Voss stepped through the crowd. His suit was clean, his tie was straight. He looked as though the building had been arranged around him. Travis approached with a tablet. Graham read Caleb's badge. Caleb Rowan, night maintenance, assigned to the East Mechanical Corridor. Caleb turned. "What are you doing?" Graham's expression carried practiced concern. "The electrical interruption began near the restricted control room. Your employee badge was used to enter that room 11 minutes before the alarms." Whispers moved through the lobby. Security guards stepped forward. Vivian looked from Graham to Travis. The accusation had arrived too quickly. The evidence was already waiting. Graham folded his hands. "Until we understand why a maintenance employee entered a restricted control area during a major product launch, Mr. Rowan cannot be allowed to leave." Caleb looked past him toward the stairwell. "Check the west fire door." Graham tilted his head. It was locked from the control side. Travis looked down at the tablet. Graham gave a faint smile. "Now he is inventing locked doors." Two guards took Caleb by the arms. Vivian tried to rise. Her right foot found the floor. Her left leg collapsed. She fell against the bench. Caleb moved toward her by instinct, but the guards pulled him back. For one suspended moment, the man who had carried her through smoke stood restrained beneath her company's silver logo, while the men who had left her behind waited for the room to believe their version of the truth. The room believed Graham for almost 3 seconds. That was all he needed. 3 seconds of silence. 3 seconds of Caleb standing between two security guards while Vivian struggled to sit upright. 3 seconds for every frightened person in the lobby to look at the maintenance worker instead of the executives who had controlled the building. Graham stepped closer to the reporters. His voice remained low and measured. "No one is making an accusation without evidence. We are simply asking Mr. Rowan to remain available while security determines how his credentials were used inside a restricted control room." It sounded reasonable. That was what made it dangerous. Caleb looked at the hands gripping his arms. Neither guard met his eyes. They were not cruel men. They were men waiting for someone with a better title to tell them what courage looked like. A paramedic knelt beside Vivian and touched her ankle. "Can you feel this?" Vivian watched Caleb. "No." The paramedic pressed higher. "Here a little." Graham turned toward her with practiced concern. "Vivian, you need medical care. Let us handle this." Her eyes moved to him. The smoke had left a dark mark across one side of her face. Her hair had fallen loose near her shoulder. Caleb's work shirt still rested around her like a blanket. Graham looked at the shirt. Something cold passed behind his expression. Vivian saw it. "Handle what she asked. The security breach. You decided there was a security breach before anyone checked the door. The access record is clear. So was the west fire door." Travis shifted beside him. Graham did not look away from Vivian. "You have been through a traumatic event. I understand why your judgment may be affected." The words reached the board members exactly as he intended. A few of them glanced at one another. Vivian noticed. He was not only accusing Caleb, he was beginning the argument against her. Caleb did not raise his voice. There was a child on 34. Graham turned. What blue backpack, dinosaur patch? His mother was wearing hospital scrubs. One of the paramedics looked toward the south entrance. Caleb continued. An older man from the donor group was having trouble breathing near 35. He needs oxygen even if he says he is fine. The paramedic stood. I saw the boy come through the east exit. Did he find his mother? I do not know. Find out. The paramedic hesitated only a moment before calling to another responder. Check the family holding area. Look for a boy with a blue backpack. Graham's expression tightened. Mr. Rowan, this is not the time to redirect the room. Caleb looked at him. People are still scared. So are you. No. Graham gave a small smile. You expect us to believe that Caleb looked toward the stairwell doors. I expect you to check who still needs help. A woman near the reception desk lifted one hand. Her silver dress was torn near the hem. Soot marked both cheeks. He helped me. Everyone turned toward her. She swallowed. On the 33rd floor, the door would not open. He forced it. Another employee stepped forward. He gave me his emergency mask. A man near the elevators raised his voice. He carried Mr. Hollis's medical bag down 2 flights. The older donor Caleb had guided earlier sat beneath an oxygen mask near the entrance. He pulled it away long enough to speak. That man came back for her. His shaking finger pointed toward Vivian. He could have left with me. He turned around. The guard holding Caleb's right arm loosened his grip. Graham noticed. Acts of assistance do not erase evidence. No, Caleb said. Evidence should not need help from your opinion. A quiet sound moved through the lobby. Not laughter, recognition. Graham's face did not change, but the muscles near his jaw hardened. Travis lifted the tablet. The badge log shows entry at 6:58. East Control Room. Credential number 4719. Caleb looked at the screen. My badge was missing before the launch. You mentioned that already, Graham said. I reported it. To whom Caleb looked at Travis. At 6:42, outside service elevator 3. Travis blinked. I do not remember that. You were holding a black tablet. The temporary pass dispenser was open. A catering employee walked between us carrying a tray of coffee. Travis shook his head. You report dozens of problems every week. I reported one stolen badge tonight. You said it was missing. I said someone took it. Graham stepped between them. Memory becomes unreliable under stress. Caleb looked past him, asked the catering employee. Graham spread his hands. We are not conducting witness interviews in the middle of the lobby. Vivian's voice cut through the room. We are now. Everyone turned toward her. The paramedic beside her tried to continue the examination. Vivian raised one hand. Find the catering staff assigned to the East Service elevators. Graham's eyes narrowed. Vivian, you wanted facts. I want you at the hospital, and I want the employee who saved my life released. That is not your decision alone. The room changed. It was a small sentence, but every board member heard the challenge inside it. Vivian's fingers tightened around the edge of the bench. Explain that. Graham approached her slowly. The board has a responsibility to intervene when the chief executive is medically compromised. A camera shutter clicked. Vivian looked toward the reporters. Graham had chosen his moment carefully. If she argued, she appeared unstable. If she remained silent, he defined her condition for her. If she attempted to stand and failed again, the image would travel across every financial network in the country before morning. Graham lowered his voice. You do not have to do this publicly. Vivian looked at Caleb. His arms remained held at his sides. Smoke stained his face. His undershirt was dark with sweat. He had given her the only layer of protection he had, and now he stood accused beneath a sign bearing her name. He did not ask her to defend him. That made the choice harder. Vivian pushed both hands against the bench. The paramedic reached for her. Please stay seated. She ignored him. Her right foot pressed into the marble. Her left leg trembled. Caleb shifted forward. The guards tightened their hold. Vivian rose halfway. Pain crossed her face. Her knee collapsed. She caught the edge of the bench before striking the floor. Several people gasped. Graham moved toward her. Vivian raised one hand. Do not touch me. He stopped. She remained bent for a moment, breathing through the pain. Then she lowered herself back onto the bench. The cameras continued watching. Vivian lifted her head. My name is Vivian Hawthorne. No one spoke. 3 years ago, I was injured in a highway collision outside Durham. The damage to my lower spinal nerves was incomplete. Marissa stood near the stairwell doors, one hand pressed against her mouth. Vivian continued. Some days I walk without assistance. Some days I use a cane. Some days my left leg loses motor control without warning. A reporter lowered her phone slightly. Graham's expression became unreadable. Vivian looked directly at the cameras. I concealed the full extent of my condition from this company's board. Whispers rose. She did not stop. I did it because I believed people in this room would mistake physical vulnerability for professional incompetence. Her gaze moved across the board members. Several looked away. That fear did not cause tonight's emergency. It did, however, make me easier to isolate, easier to shame, and easier to manipulate. Graham took a step toward her. This is not the place. Vivian turned to him. You made it the place. The lobby fell silent again. Caleb watched her shoulders settle. The fear remained visible now. So did the strength. They were no longer enemies inside her. Graham tried another approach. No one here doubts your accomplishments. You are holding the man who rescued me because his job title makes him convenient. We are holding him because his badge entered a restricted room, and because you began explaining his guilt before anyone asked who locked the stairwell. Graham's voice cooled. You are emotionally compromised. Vivian looked at Caleb. He was watching her with the same steady attention he had given her on the landing. No pity, no surprise, no demand. She turned back to Graham. He carried me through smoke. Gratitude is not corruption. This is more than gratitude. The implication landed in front of the cameras. Vivian felt heat rise beneath the soot on her face. Caleb's expression hardened. Graham continued. You met this man today. He was alone with you during a traumatic medical event. You are wearing his clothing. Your ability to assess his conduct objectively is questionable. Caleb pulled once against the guards. Leave her out of this. Graham looked at him. You placed her in it. Vivian's voice sharpened. No, you did. She removed Caleb's work shirt from her shoulders and held it across her lap. This belongs to the man who turned back when my own executives kept running. The woman in the silver dress lowered her eyes. Vivian looked at the guards. Release him. Neither moved. Graham spoke first. Security answers to corporate procedure. Vivian turned her head slowly. I am still Chief Executive Officer. Pending board review. The words were quiet. The threat was not. A board member near the elevator stepped forward. Graham, that is enough. Graham looked at him. Is it? She just admitted concealing a medical condition that may affect corporate leadership. It does not authorize you to detain an employee without investigation. We have a badge record. We also have witnesses placing him in the stairwell. The first guard removed his hand from Caleb's arm. The second followed. Caleb did not move. He looked at Vivian. Are you hurt? The question nearly broke the last of her composure. She looked down at her leg. I do not know yet. Caleb nodded toward the paramedic. Let him finish checking you. Vivian almost smiled. Even after being accused, he was still telling her to accept help. Graham looked around the lobby and realized the room was slipping away from him. He turned toward Travis. Take Mr. Rowan to a private office until law enforcement arrives. No, Vivian said. Graham ignored her. Security. Vivian struck the metal side of the bench with her palm. The sound cracked through the lobby. No one removes Caleb Rowan from this building until I see every access record, every door command, and every second of available security data. Graham stared at her. The camera system failed. The main camera system failed. Vivian looked toward the technical staff gathering near the reception desk. Elena Park is still in the building. A young engineer near the elevator lifted her head. Her dark hair was damp from the rain. A laptop bag hung from one shoulder. Vivian pointed toward the reception counter. Set up a review station. Elena hesitated. Graham spoke before she moved. Do not access restricted systems without legal approval. Vivian did not look at him. Elena, the engineer swallowed. Yes, ma'am. She hurried behind the reception desk and opened her laptop. Two staff members rolled a pair of emergency monitors from the security office. Graham lowered his voice. This is reckless. Vivian watched Elena connect to the backup network. A man is being accused in front of his co-workers and his child. Caleb's head turned. My child is not here. Marissa stepped closer. The students were moved to the West conference room after the evacuation. Caleb's face changed, only slightly. Vivian saw it. Lily is safe, Marissa added. Her teacher is with her. Caleb exhaled. Then the doors near the conference wing opened. A teacher entered with 6 children gathered around her. Lily walked at the front. Her yellow cardigan was streaked with gray dust. One side of her nerve cell model hung loose, the silver tape peeled from the poster board. She searched the lobby. Then she saw Caleb. She stopped. Her eyes moved to the guards beside him, the reporters and the people staring. Dad Caleb crossed the space before anyone could stop him. He knelt in front of her. "Are you hurt?" Lily shook her head. "Mrs. Dale made us stay under the tables until the lights came back." "Good. Why were they holding you?" Caleb looked toward the teacher. "You should take her outside." Lily grabbed his wrist. "Did you do something?" Graham approached with an expression designed to appear gentle. "Your father may have made a serious mistake." Caleb stood. "Do not speak to her." Graham stopped several feet away. "I am only trying to explain. You are trying to make a child afraid of her father." Lily looked from one man to the other. Graham softened his voice further. "Sometimes people under financial pressure make desperate choices." Caleb went still. Vivian saw the change immediately. Until that moment, he had accepted every accusation without raising his voice. He had allowed guards to hold him. He had watched executives question his character. But Graham had brought Lily into it. Caleb stepped forward. The nearest guard moved between them. Caleb stopped himself. His hands remained open at his sides. "You can question me," he said. "You can search my locker. You can check every place I walk tonight." His eyes did not leave Graham's. "But you do not use my daughter to make your lie sound kind." Lily moved closer to Caleb. She wrapped both arms around his waist. "My dad runs toward people." Graham looked down at her. She continued. "He does not hurt them." No one in the lobby moved. The teacher wiped one hand across her eyes. The guard standing between Caleb and Graham stepped aside. Graham looked toward the cameras. "This is becoming emotional." Vivian's voice came from the bench. "No, it is becoming visible." Elena cleared her throat behind the monitors. "I have access to the emergency network." Vivian turned. "Show us the control room." The main cameras went offline during the power interruption. Graham spread his hands. "As I said." Elena looked at him, then back at Vivian. "The thermal occupancy sensors run on an independent battery system." The room changed again. Travis lowered his head. Graham's eyes moved toward him. Vivian saw the glance. "Put the thermal timeline on the screens." Elena connected the feed. Grainy shapes appeared across both monitors. Heat signatures moved through stairwells and corridors like pale figures beneath dark glass. Elena adjusted the timestamps. 6:58. The screen showed the 38th floor. A figure moved away from the east mechanical corridor. Elena enlarged the image. Caleb stood near an open pressure panel. At the same moment, another credential log showed his badge entering the restricted control room 2 floors below. Murmurs spread across the lobby. Elena moved forward through the footage. At 7:01, Caleb guided 2 employees into the stairwell. At 7:03, he helped the elderly donor down a flight. At 7:05, he turned and climbed back upward. At 7:09, his heat signature appeared beside Vivian on the executive landing. The badge assigned to him had been used elsewhere throughout those minutes. A reporter spoke. He could not have been in the control room. Graham answered immediately. He could have given the badge to someone else. Caleb looked at him. "I reported it stolen." Elena turned to another window. "I am checking the maintenance system." Travis took one step toward her. "The local records may be corrupted," Elena typed. "The report was created at 6:43. Caleb looked at Travis. "I told you at 6:42. Elena nodded. The entry posted 1 minute later. Vivian leaned forward. "Who closed it?" Elena's fingers stopped. It was deleted. Graham spoke quickly. During the outage, Elena enlarged the audit record, 7 minutes after it was submitted. "By whom?" Vivian asked. Elena looked at Travis. "Administrative account assigned to Building Operations Director Travis Boone." Every face turned. Travis stared at the floor. "That account is used by several people." Elena shook her head. "The deletion came from your company tablet." Travis held the device tighter. Graham stepped away from him. The movement was small. Travis noticed. Vivian noticed too. Elena, she said, showed the control room entrance. The main camera is gone, but the door sensor stored 3 image fragments. The first image appeared. A blurred figure stood near the steel control panel. The face was hidden by shadow. The body was broader than Caleb's. The second image showed one shoulder and part of an arm. The third captured the figure's right hand against the badge reader. A silver ring reflected the sensor light. Elena enlarged it. A crest was engraved into the metal. Lily looked at the screen, then across the lobby. Her eyes settled on Travis's hand. He wore the same ring. Travis closed his fingers and pulled his hand behind his back. Graham's calm finally cracked. Travis, do not say another word. Vivian kept her eyes on him. Let him speak. Travis looked at Graham, then at Caleb, then at Lily, still holding her father's waist as if she could protect him from every adult in the room. His mouth opened. No sound came at first. When he finally drew breath, Graham stepped toward him. Security moved between them. Travis looked at the image of his own hand on the screen. His shoulders began to shake. Graham told me it would only last 90 seconds. Travis Boone's confession did not sound dramatic. It sounded tired. The words left his mouth and seemed to remain suspended beneath the lobby lights, too plain to be mistaken for anything else. Graham Voss stared at him. Do not confuse panic with memory. Travis looked toward the thermal image frozen on the monitor. His own hand remained enlarged across the screen, the silver college ring bright against the badge reader. I remember everything. Graham took another step toward him. Security blocked the path. Travis's breathing became shallow. Sweat moved from his temple to the edge of his jaw. He said the lights would go out during the demonstration. The stage support would freeze. Ms. Hawthorne would stumble in front of the cameras. Vivian sat motionless on the paramedic bench. She did not look at Graham. She watched Travis. What else did he tell you to disable? Travis lowered his head. The automatic door release. A sound moved through the crowd. It was not a word. It was the collective reaction of people remembering every door that had failed to open. Caleb's hand settled on Lily's shoulder. How many floors? He asked. Travis looked at him. 4. Which 4? The executive stairwell, the west corridor, the east research level, the upper conference floor. Caleb stepped closer. You locked emergency exits in a crowded building. It was supposed to reset. That is not what I asked. Travis's eyes filled. Nobody was supposed to get hurt. Caleb's voice remained quiet. You sealed fire doors while hundreds of people were inside. I tried to reverse it. After the alarm, yes. And it failed. Travis said nothing. Caleb looked toward the people being treated near the lobby windows. A woman held an oxygen mask to her face. The elderly donor sat beneath a blanket. A firefighter spoke into a radio near the stairwell. You do not get to say nobody was supposed to be hurt. The sentence did not rise above the room. It did not need to. Travis lowered his face into both hands. Graham recovered before anyone else. This confession is unreliable. He is frightened and attempting to protect himself. Travis looked up. You gave me the badge. Graham's expression did not change. You stole an employee credential. You put it in my hand. There is no proof of that. Elena Park turned back to her laptop. There may be. Graham looked at her. Elena opened a secure network folder. The emergency radio system stores local audio whenever the main server loses power. Travis's face went pale. Graham took one step backward. Elena connected the file to the lobby speakers. Static filled the room. Then Travis's voice emerged thin and uncertain. The fire door system is unstable. Graham answered. For 90 seconds. Rowan filed an unsafe report. Then his badge appearing in the control room will make the explanation easier. The recording ended. No one moved. Graham stared at the speakers as if silence could pull the words back into them. Vivian's hand tightened around Caleb's work shirt. You planned to blame him before the outage began. Graham turned toward her. I planned for every possibility. You planned a suspect. I planned containment. You locked people inside. I authorized a temporary systems test. Travis laughed once. The sound was broken. You told me the chief executive needed to fall in public. Graham looked at him with open contempt now. You are a weak man trying to turn your own choices into someone else's crime. Travis flinched. Elena spoke again. I found the control room connection history. Vivian looked toward the monitors. Elena opened a series of records. Mr. Boone's phone connected to the local network at 6:57. His tablet accessed the fire door controls at 6:58. The command was entered manually. Graham's voice sharpened. We already know he was involved, Elena continued. There is also an encrypted message thread. Graham went still. Do not open private executive communications in a public lobby. Vivian looked at Elena. Open it. The legal department should review it first. I am authorizing the review. Graham turned toward the board. This is an extraordinary violation of corporate governance. One of the board members folded his arms. So is trapping the board inside a burning building. There was no fire. A firefighter near the stairwell looked over. There was an electrical ignition on 37. Smoke spread through 3 ventilation zones. Graham's face tightened. The firefighter continued. If the suppression system had failed, this lobby would not be having a conversation. Elena entered the final security code. The encrypted messages appeared. Most were brief. Change the timing to 6:58. Use the maintenance credential. No direct communication after activation. Another message contained the name Bellwether Medical Holdings. Vivian leaned forward. Open that file. Graham moved toward the computer. Caleb stepped between him and Elena. For the first time that night, Graham had to look up slightly to meet Caleb's eyes. Move. Caleb did not. Graham's voice lowered. You have no authority here. Caleb glanced at the security guards. Neither do you. The guards remained where they were. Elena opened the file. A contract summary filled the screen. The Bellwether name appeared above a list of proposed assets, licensing rights, research facilities, and executive appointments. Vivian read in silence. Phoenix Mobility Frame exclusive ownership. Cancellation of nonprofit access agreements. Closure of 2 veterans rehabilitation partnerships. Termination of subsidized patient distribution. Appointment of Graham Voss as president of the Combined Medical Technology Division. Guaranteed compensation valued at $8.4 million. The room seemed to narrow around Vivian. She looked at the Phoenix banner hanging above the demonstration hall entrance. Movement with dignity. The words glowed in clean silver letters. Graham had planned to sell the machine to the highest bidder and remove the people who could not afford it. Vivian looked at him. This was never about my health. It was about leadership. You were selling the company. I was protecting its value. You were selling exclusive rights to Phoenix. Bellwether has distribution capacity we do not. You canceled access for military hospitals. They cannot support the manufacturing costs. You closed the uninsured patient program. It was financially irresponsible. Caleb's expression changed. Only Vivian noticed. The anger in him was no longer restrained by confusion. He understood exactly what Graham had been trying to take. Vivian held Graham's gaze. You tried to remove me because I would not sign this. You refused to consider reality. No, I refused to turn a medical device into a locked door. Graham looked toward the board members. You all saw the projections. You know the access program would destroy our margins. One board member shook his head. You told us Bellwether wanted a research partnership. The terms evolved. You accepted a position inside the acquiring company. I secured continuity. For yourself, Vivian said. Graham faced her again. His calm had begun to break apart. You inherited control of this company. You have never understood what it takes to preserve it. Vivian's eyes narrowed. I spent 12 years building Phoenix. You spent 12 years using your family name to make investors trust a woman who could not cross a room without hiding a cane. The cruelty of the sentence struck the lobby. Marissa closed her eyes. Lily pressed closer to Caleb. Vivian did not look away. Graham saw the silence and mistook it for an opening. You built your reputation on strength. Every contract, every speech, every appearance. You made yourself the symbol of this company. What happens when the symbol cannot stand? Vivian looked down at her left leg. The paramedic had placed a temporary support around her knee. Her broken heel rested on its side near the bench. She lifted her eyes. I sit. Graham blinked. Vivian's voice steadied. I sit and I make the decision anyway. The board members watched her. She continued. I did build my reputation on pretending I never needed help. That was my mistake. Her gaze moved toward Caleb. He stood beside his daughter in a gray undershirt, soot still covering his arms. The strongest person in this building tonight was the man everyone treated as invisible. Graham laughed without humor. A maintenance worker who happened to be in the perfect place to become a hero. Caleb looked at him. I was in the place Travis sent me. You expect us to admire you because you carried one person down a staircase. Caleb's eyes moved toward the injured employees. No. The answer seemed to unsettle Graham more than an argument would have. Vivian spoke. Security will escort Graham Voss to a private conference room. No phone, no computer. Preserve every file connected to his accounts. Graham looked toward the board. You cannot do this without a formal vote. The oldest board member stepped forward. You attempted to sabotage the chief executive during a federal product demonstration. That has not been established. We heard your voice, a partial recording. We read the contract, a preliminary document. We watched your plan nearly kill people. Graham's face hardened. You are all reacting emotionally. Vivian looked at him. No, this is accountability. The security guards moved forward. Graham did not resist at first. He straightened his tie and looked toward the reporters. This company is destroying itself in public. Vivian held Caleb's shirt across her lap. No, it is finally telling the truth in public. The guards took Graham by the arms. For the first time that night he looked afraid. As he passed Caleb, he stopped. You think this changes what you are? Caleb met his eyes. No. The answer carried no shame. Graham looked toward Lily. Caleb moved between them. The guards led Graham away. Travis remained beside the monitors. A police officer approached him. Travis removed his ring and placed it on the reception desk. His hands shook as the officer guided them behind his back. I am sorry, he whispered. Caleb looked at him. For what? Travis opened his mouth. No answer came. There were too many choices inside the question. The locked door, the stolen badge, the deleted report, the child behind the smoke, the woman Caleb had carried while Travis waited below. The officer led him toward the opposite conference room. The lobby began moving again. Reporters whispered into phones. Paramedics continued their examinations. Board members gathered in small groups, speaking with lowered voices as though volume might reduce their responsibility. Lily remained beside Caleb. She looked up at him. Are they still going to take you away? No. Are you sure? Caleb glanced toward Vivian. Yes. Lily touched the soot on his arm. You went back upstairs. I heard someone. You always go back. Caleb crouched in front of her. Not always. Lily's eyes moved toward the wedding ring hanging from the chain beneath his shirt. Caleb saw where she was looking. Neither of them spoke. A voice came from behind them. Mr. Rowan. Dr. Henry Lawson stood near the paramedic station. He was 70 years old, with white hair and the slightly bent posture of a man who had spent most of his life leaning over hospital beds and research tables. He had watched the entire investigation without speaking. Now his eyes were fixed on Caleb. Have we met before? Caleb stood. I do not think so. Dr. Lawson stepped closer. Were you stationed at Fort Bragg? Caleb's shoulders became rigid. Lily looked from one man to the other. Why? Dr. Lawson studied his face. The way you positioned Ms. Hawthorne's leg. The way you assessed the smoke patient. I have seen those procedures. They are basic field medicine. Not all of them. Caleb glanced toward the exit. Dr. Lawson continued. What is your middle name? Caleb did not answer immediately. Michael. Caleb Michael Rowan. The doctor said the name slowly. Something moved through his expression, recognition mixed with disbelief. He turned toward Elena. Search the original clinical archive, before the Phoenix Division. Use Rowan and mobile spinal stabilization. Caleb stepped forward. That is not necessary. Vivian looked at him. Why not? He did not answer. Elena entered the search terms. The archive took several seconds to load. A scanned document appeared. The header carried the seal of a military medical research unit. Field memorandum. Emergency neurological stabilization during mobile evacuation. Submitted by Sergeant Caleb Michael Rowan. Lily stared at the screen. That is your name? Caleb looked at the document as if it belonged to someone he had buried. A photograph loaded beneath the title. A younger Caleb knelt inside a military transport tent. His face was thinner. His uniform sleeves were rolled to the elbows. One hand supported an injured soldier's leg while the other adjusted a portable stabilization frame. Vivian looked from the photograph to the man standing in front of her. The posture was identical. The same careful distance. The same attention. The same refusal to treat pain like helplessness. Dr. Lawson moved closer to the monitor. 12 years ago, Hawthorne Neural Systems was still operating from 2 rented laboratory rooms. Vivian's father partnered with a military rehabilitation unit. We were studying why some spinal trauma patients lost motor response during evacuation even when there was no additional structural damage. He enlarged a diagram from Caleb's report. Traditional frames held every patient in the same fixed position. Sergeant Rowan documented that some patients retained stronger nerve response when stabilization changed according to sensation pressure and voluntary muscle signals. Vivian looked at Caleb. "You developed this?" Caleb shook his head. "I wrote down what I saw," Dr. Lawson continued. He recorded pressure checks during transport, limb angles, weight transfer, changes in motor response. He insisted the patient remain part of every decision, even during emergency movement. A second document appeared, the Rowan response method. Vivian read the opening lines. Assess sensation before repositioning. Explain every movement. Allow the patient to guide pressure and support. Recheck motor response after every transfer. Her eyes lifted toward Caleb. That was exactly what he had done in the stairwell. Dr. Lawson touched the screen. These principles became part of our first responsive mobility model. Vivian looked toward the Phoenix frame in the dark demonstration hall. The Phoenix control system, the earliest version of it. The doctor opened another file. This letter came with the field notes. A scanned signature appeared at the bottom. Caleb Michael Rowan. Dr. Lawson read aloud, "I request that these observations remain available to military hospitals, emergency units, and civilian rehabilitation programs regardless of a patient's ability to pay." Graham's bellwether contract remained open on the second monitor. Exclusive ownership. Closed access. Maximum licensing value. The difference between the 2 documents filled the lobby. Vivian looked at Caleb. "Did you know Hawthorne used your work? I knew your father's team received it. You never contacted the company. No, you never asked for credit." Caleb's eyes moved toward Lily. "I did not do it for credit." Dr. Lawson opened another page. "You were offered a civilian research position." Caleb's face closed. Vivian noticed. What happened? Caleb looked at the photograph of his younger self. Rachel was pregnant. Lily's eyes widened. "With me, yes." He touched the wedding ring beneath his shirt. "My final deployment had already taken more than we expected. I came home. I chose a life where I could be present." Dr. Lawson lowered his voice. "We tried to find you after the first prototype succeeded. I changed addresses. You disappeared." Caleb looked at Lily. "I became a father." Lily stared at the documents. "You helped make the machine. I help people on bad days." "But you knew things." Caleb crouched beside her. "I knew what worked in the field." "Why did you never tell me?" He looked at her damaged science project lying near the reception desk. The purple cell body had separated from the poster board. "Because good work does not become better when people clap for it." Lily's mouth trembled. "It matters to me." The words reached him in a place the applause never could have. Caleb pulled her into his arms. "I know. No, you did not." He closed his eyes. She was right. He had spent years hiding pain so Lily would not have to carry it. Somewhere along the way he had hidden the parts of himself she deserved to know. Vivian watched them. Caleb had carried everyone that night without asking whether anyone could carry him. A paramedic touched her shoulder. "We need to transport you." Vivian nodded, but her eyes remained on Caleb. When Lily finally released him, Vivian held out his work shirt. He approached the bench. She placed it into his hands. "My company used your work and forgot your name. You did not know. I was responsible for knowing." Caleb looked toward the Phoenix banner. "Knowing now is not the same as changing it." "No." Vivian held his gaze. "It is not." The paramedics brought a stretcher beside the bench. Vivian allowed them to help her onto it. The movement sent pain through her hip. Her hand closed around the metal rail. Caleb stepped closer. You should have imaging done before you put weight on the leg. Vivian looked at him. You are still giving orders. Suggestions. They sound remarkably similar. His mouth lifted slightly. The expression disappeared almost at once. Vivian reached for his hand. He looked down at her fingers around his. Why did you come back? She asked. Caleb glanced toward the stairwell. Because I heard you. Everyone heard the alarms. I heard you. Vivian's voice softened. That is not the same answer. Caleb stood quietly for a moment. The lobby continued around them, but neither seemed part of it. Finally, he spoke. I know what it sounds like when someone realizes they have been left behind. Vivian understood that he was not speaking only about her. He was speaking about soldiers in transport tents, about Rachel, about Lily, about himself. The paramedics began moving the stretcher. Vivian kept hold of his hand. Come to the hospital. Caleb looked toward Lily. She picked up the broken nerve cell model and nodded once. He turned back to Vivian. I will follow the ambulance. Vivian released him only when the distance between them made holding on impossible. Vivian watched Caleb disappear behind the closing ambulance doors. For several seconds, the vehicle remained still beneath the rain. Red light moved across the lobby glass, touching the faces of employees, firefighters, police officers, and reporters who had not yet decided which part of the night would become tomorrow's headline. Then the siren rose. The ambulance pulled away from Hawthorne Neural Systems and turned toward Wake Memorial Hospital. Caleb stood beneath the entrance canopy with Lily beside him. Rain struck the pavement just beyond their shoes. Lily held her damaged science project against her chest. Are we really following her? Caleb looked toward the road. Yes, you told Mrs. Dale hospitals make you nervous. I said hospital parking makes me nervous. That is not what you said. Caleb glanced down at her. Lily's yellow cardigan was stained with soot. One sleeve had torn near the wrist. She looked exhausted, frightened, and far too awake for a child who had started her morning above a laundromat. He crouched. You should go home with Mrs. Dale. No, Lily. You said you were going to follow the ambulance. I am. Then I am following you. Caleb looked over her shoulder. Mrs. Dale stood near the lobby doors with the remaining students. She gave him a tired nod that said she understood the argument was already over. Caleb took his jacket from Vivian's stretcher blanket and placed it around Lily's shoulders. It was too large for her. The sleeves covered her hands. Stay close. Lily reached into the pocket. Her fingers found something. She pulled out a small black hairpin. Vivian's. Lily studied it. She left this. Caleb took the pin and closed his hand around it. Yes. The hospital waiting room smelled of coffee, antiseptic, and rainwater drying on coats. Caleb sat near a dark window with Lily asleep against his side. Her science project rested beneath 2 chairs. A nurse had brought her a blanket. Caleb had not moved for nearly an hour. Every few minutes he looked toward the double doors that led into the emergency department. He told himself he was waiting because Vivian had asked him to come. He told himself he needed to explain the position of her leg when he found her. He told himself the doctors might have questions about the loss of sensation. None of those reasons explained why he still held the black hairpin. A television above the waiting room showed silent footage from the tower. Vivian appeared on the screen wrapped in Caleb's work shirt. Then came an image of Graham being escorted through the lobby. A caption moved beneath the footage. Hawthorne executive detained after building emergency. Caleb looked away. Lily shifted against him. Is she okay? Her eyes remained closed. I do not know yet. You like her? Caleb looked down. Lily opened one eye. She is your boss. She is not my boss. She owns the building where your boss works. That is not the same thing. Lily closed her eye again. You like her. Caleb leaned back against the chair. You have had a long day. That is not an answer. He almost smiled. Before he could respond, Dr. Mercer entered the waiting room. She was a woman in her early 50s with tired eyes and a white coat open over green scrubs. Mr. Rowan Caleb stood carefully so Lily would not fall. Lily woke at once. Dr. Mercer looked at both of them. Ms. Hawthorne asked whether you were here. How is she? The fall caused a deep hip contusion and a small ligament tear near the left knee. There is no new spinal damage. Caleb exhaled. The motor loss. Consistent with her existing injury and the stress response, sensation is already returning. Lily smiled. Caleb did not. Dr. Mercer noticed. She will need observation tonight and several weeks of reduced weight-bearing. The larger concern is exhaustion. She has not been following her treatment plan. That sounds like her, Caleb said. Dr. Mercer gave him a curious look. You have known her for several hours. It was a long several hours. The doctor looked toward Lily. Ms. Hawthorne wants to see both of you. Vivian's hospital room was quiet except for the steady monitor near her bed. The soot had been washed from her face. Her hair fell loose across the pillow. Without the suit heels and controlled posture, she looked younger. She also looked angry. A support brace covered her left knee. Caleb stopped near the doorway. You are supposed to be resting. Vivian looked at him. You came. You asked. Lily stepped around Caleb. We brought your hairpin. Vivian glanced at the object in Caleb's hand. For the first time since they entered, her expression softened. I wondered where that went. Caleb placed it on the bedside table. Lily moved closer to the bed. Does your leg still not work, Lily? Vivian raised one hand. It is all right. She looked at the child. It is working a little. It is also angry with me. Why? Because I have not treated it very well. Lily considered that. You should say sorry. Vivian looked toward Caleb. I have been told apologies are only beginnings. Caleb held her gaze. Lily looked between them. I am going to get water. There is water right there, Caleb said. I want different water. She picked up the plastic cup and walked toward the hallway. Caleb watched until she reached the nurse's desk. Vivian adjusted the blanket over her knee. You raised a very subtle child. She gets that from her mother. The answer changed the air between them. Vivian looked toward the window. Rachel. Yes, Dr. Lawson told me she was a hospice nurse. He talks too much. He said she volunteered with military families before that. Caleb pulled a chair closer but did not sit. She did. Why did you leave medicine? I did not leave medicine. You left a research position. I chose Lily. Vivian looked at him. That was not the question. Caleb sat. For several moments only the monitor spoke. Then he looked at the floor. After my last deployment, I did not sleep much. I kept hearing rotor blades when the apartment was quiet. Rachel was pregnant. She would wake up and find me sitting in the kitchen with every light on. Vivian said nothing. She wanted me to take the research position. She said I could help more people without being shot at. What did you want? I wanted to believe I could come home and become ordinary. Vivian studied his hands. They rested loosely between his knees, but the fingers were tense. Did it work for a while? And after Rachel died, Caleb looked toward the hallway where Lily had disappeared. I became whatever Lily needed. That is not the same as becoming ordinary. No. Vivian's fingers moved against the blanket. You carried me because you knew how. I carried you because you needed help. You knew what to do because that part of you never disappeared. Caleb looked at her. Vivian held his gaze. You became invisible inside my company because no one asked the right questions. I did not want them asked. Why? Because people like stories more than they like people. Vivian's expression tightened. You think I want to turn you into a story? I think your board will. My board nearly allowed Graham to have me removed before the smoke cleared. That is my point. Vivian looked down at her brace. I am not asking you to stand in front of cameras. What are you asking? She took a slow breath. I do not know yet. The honesty surprised him. Vivian gave a quiet laugh without humor. I am not used to saying that. You should practice. You are remarkably comfortable criticizing injured women, only the stubborn ones. Her eyes lifted. For a moment, neither of them moved. The space between the chair and the bed felt smaller than it was. Lily returned with a paper cup. She looked from Caleb to Vivian. You were talking. That happens in hospitals, Caleb said. Lily handed Vivian the water. This one is colder. Vivian accepted it. Thank you. Lily climbed into the chair beside Caleb. Are they putting Graham in jail? Caleb leaned back. That is for the police and the courts. He locked the doors. Yes. And Travis helped. Yes. Then why do adults need so long to decide things children already know? Vivian looked at Caleb. He rubbed one hand over his face. Because adults build systems around simple truths. Lily frowned. That sounds stupid. It often is. Vivian laughed. The sound filled the hospital room more warmly than anything else inside it. 3 days later, Vivian left Wake Memorial using a graphite walking frame. Reporters waited beyond the hospital doors. Marissa had arranged a private exit through the underground garage, but Vivian refused it. She wore flat shoes, dark trousers, and a long gray coat. Her left leg moved carefully inside the support brace. Caleb stood near the main entrance with Lily. He had come to return the medical records Dr. Lawson had copied for him. He told himself that was the reason. Vivian stopped when she saw them. Lily raised one hand. The reporters noticed. Cameras turned. Caleb looked toward the garage entrance. "You can still leave another way." Vivian gripped the walking frame. "No, you do not owe them an appearance. I owe them the truth. You already told them. I told them while covered in smoke and wearing your shirt. It looked better on you." Vivian looked at him. Caleb's expression remained serious for almost 2 seconds. Then the corner of his mouth moved. Vivian shook her head. "You are becoming reckless. I have had a strange week." She looked toward the doors. The noise outside grew louder. Caleb stepped beside her. "You do not have to walk out alone." Vivian's hands tightened around the frame. "I know." He waited. She looked at him. "But I need to walk." Caleb nodded. He moved back half a step, close enough to reach her, far enough not to take the choice away. The hospital doors opened. Vivian stepped into the cold morning. Questions struck at once. Was she medically fit to remain chief executive? Had she concealed information from investors? Was Caleb Rowan her employee or her personal rescuer? Was Hawthorne Neural Systems responsible for the emergency? Vivian stopped at the top of the entrance ramp. She looked directly toward the cameras. "My injury is not new. My decision to speak openly about it is." The crowd quieted. "I will continue serving as chief executive during the independent investigation. I will cooperate with law enforcement. Hawthorne Neural Systems will release all safety findings, including those that reflect failures under my leadership." A reporter called out, "Are you blaming yourself?" Vivian glanced at Caleb. "No. I am accepting responsibility for what belonged to me before Graham Voss committed his crimes. The culture inside my company rewarded silence, appearance, and obedience. I led that culture." Another voice rose. "Will Mr. Rowan receive compensation for his medical research?" Vivian looked at Caleb again. "That decision will be made with Mr. Rowan, not for him." Caleb lowered his eyes. Lily took his hand. Vivian began moving down the ramp. One careful step, then another. The frame clicked softly against the concrete. Caleb stayed near her without touching her. At the bottom, Vivian paused. "You can breathe now," she said. "I was breathing. No, you were counting." Caleb looked at her. "How did you know you counted every stair?" A black car waited beside the curb. Marissa opened the rear door. Vivian looked at Lily. "Your science project survived." Lily held up the repaired model. "Dad fixed it." Vivian looked at Caleb. "Of course he did." The car drove away. Caleb remained on the sidewalk long after it disappeared into traffic. The investigation lasted 11 weeks. Graham Voss was charged with reckless endangerment, conspiracy evidence tampering, and unlawful interference with emergency systems. Federal investigators opened a separate inquiry into the Bellwether transaction. Travis Boone entered a cooperation agreement. His confession did not erase the locked doors or the people endangered behind them. It did provide the messages, banking records, and private meeting notes Graham believed had been destroyed. The board placed Vivian on temporary medical leave for 2 weeks. She refused to call it a suspension. Caleb called it exactly that. They argued during her 3rd day at home. Vivian sat at the long kitchen island in her penthouse, reviewing internal reports while her walking frame stood beside the stool. Caleb had come to deliver copies of his unsafe work orders. He looked at the open laptop. "You are supposed to be resting." "I am sitting. You have 6 screens open. Resting does not require ignorance. Your doctor said limited work. My doctor does not understand the current state of the company. Your doctor understands the current state of your spine." Vivian looked up. Caleb stood across the island wearing his maintenance uniform. He had returned to work after refusing paid leave. "You could take the settlement." "No. The company owes you. The company owes hundreds of people. It also owes you." Caleb placed the folder on the counter. "Do not turn me into the repair you can complete quickly." Vivian closed the laptop. That is not what I am doing. You offered me an executive title. The board offered it. You supported it. I thought you deserved authority. You thought a title would make them respect what I said." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "Would it not? That is the problem." He opened the folder. Inside were years of safety reports signed by workers whose names Vivian had never seen. Luis Mendoza reported the West Lock twice. Andrea Collins reported smoke sensor failures in the research wing. A contractor named Paul Mercer filed 3 elevator warnings and was removed from the schedule. Vivian turned the pages. Why were these not sent to my office? They were. She looked at him. Operations filtered them, and nobody in your office asked why every building report said the same thing. Vivian sat back. Caleb's voice softened. You do not fix a culture by putting one maintenance worker in a suit. What do you want? The question came with frustration, but also surrender. Caleb looked at her. Independent safety oversight, worker representatives on every facilities review, protection for people who refuse unsafe orders, public reporting after major failures. Vivian reached for a pen. He continued. Phoenix access for military hospitals and uninsured clinics. Recognition for field researchers whose work ended up inside company patents. A fund for employees injured on company property. Vivian wrote each item. Anything else? Yes. She looked up. You stop acting like accepting help gives someone ownership of you. The pen stopped. That is not a corporate proposal. No. Then why are you saying it? Caleb met her eyes. Because you nearly fell getting to the door when I arrived. Vivian looked toward the walking frame. You were not supposed to notice. I notice things. That is becoming inconvenient. For both of us. Silence settled between them. Vivian placed the pen down. You did not answer my question at the hospital. Which one? What are you asking from me? Caleb looked toward the wide windows overlooking Raleigh. I do not know. Vivian smiled faintly. You should practice saying that. He turned back. She held his gaze until neither could pretend the conversation remained about policies. A month later, the board approved the creation of an independent safety office. Caleb refused the executive title again. He accepted a position as Director of Field Access and Patient Safety only after the board agreed that he would report to an external oversight committee, not directly to Vivian. His new office had glass walls and a view of downtown. He hated it. Lily loved the chair. She spun in it while Caleb unpacked a box of files. This office is too clean. You have been here 4 minutes. It does not smell like tools. That is because tools belong in workshops. You could put a wrench on the desk. I am not decorating with a wrench. Lily opened another box. Inside was the framed photograph of Rachel beneath the maple tree. She looked at Caleb. You brought Mom. She was in the apartment. That is not what I meant. Caleb placed the photograph on a shelf. Lily sat on the edge of the desk. Vivian likes you. Caleb opened a folder. We work together. She bought pizza with mushrooms because you like mushrooms. That is not evidence. She hates mushrooms. Caleb looked at her. How do you know I asked Marissa? You should not interrogate the chief executive's assistant. I did not interrogate her. We had lunch. Caleb closed the folder. Why did you have lunch with Marissa? She invited me. Why to talk about the center? Caleb stopped. What center? Lily covered her mouth. The office door opened. Vivian entered using a slim walking frame. She looked at Lily. You lasted 12 minutes. I am sorry. No, you are not. Lily grabbed her backpack. I have homework. She hurried past Vivian. Caleb waited until the door closed. What center? Vivian moved toward the desk. The board approved converting the damaged demonstration floor into a mobility and recovery clinic. For employees, for veterans, children with nerve injuries, uninsured patients, and people rejected by traditional rehabilitation programs. Caleb looked at her. You did not mention this. I'm mentioning it now. What is it called? Vivian's expression changed. That part is not final. Vivian. She reached into a folder and placed a rendering on his desk. The proposed sign read Rachel Rowan Center for Mobility and Recovery. Caleb stared at it. No. Vivian had expected resistance. She had not expected the force of it. It is not a monument. No. She worked with military families. That does not give you the right to use her name. I spoke with the nonprofit where she volunteered. You researched my wife. I wanted to understand who she was. Caleb pushed the rendering away. You do not understand her because someone sent you a file. Vivian's hands tightened around the frame. I know that. Then why? Because every person I spoke to described the same woman. Caleb looked away. Vivian continued. She sat with families during casualty notifications. She organized meals when soldiers returned injured. She became a hospice nurse because she believed no one should face pain alone. Caleb's jaw tightened. She hated attention. So do you. That is not an argument. No. Vivian's voice softened. It is why the name fits. Caleb turned toward her. She stood without hiding the frame between them. The center is not being named after the man who wrote the protocol. It is being named after the woman who taught that man how to remain human after war. Caleb's anger faltered. Vivian looked at Rachel's photograph. She spent her life sitting beside people everyone else was afraid to lose. Caleb followed her gaze. For years, the photograph had represented the moment before loss. Vivian had described what came before the photograph and after it. Not the illness, not the empty coffee mug, Rachel's life. Caleb sat slowly. You should have asked. Yes, you should not make decisions about my family without me. No. Vivian waited. Caleb picked up the rendering. He studied the letters. Rachel Rowan Center for Mobility and Recovery. She would have hated the size of the sign. Vivian exhaled. We can make it smaller. She would have complained about the font. I already complained about the font. Caleb looked at her. Vivian smiled. Lily chose it. That explains everything. The months that followed changed the 36th floor. The damaged presentation hall was stripped to concrete. The glass stage came down. Private executive dining rooms became therapy spaces. The room where Graham had signed the Bellwether Agreement became a legal aid office for patients denied insurance coverage. Caleb spent mornings with engineers and afternoons with patients. Vivian attended physical therapy in the unfinished center 3 days a week. At first, she scheduled sessions before sunrise so employees would not see her fall. Caleb discovered the schedule and moved the construction meetings earlier. On the first morning workers entered while Vivian practiced weight transfer, she stopped. Every eye moved away too quickly. Vivian gripped the rail. I want the room cleared. Caleb stood near the doorway. No. She turned. You do not work for me in this room. Good, Caleb. He looked toward the workers. Keep going. A drill started near the far wall. Vivian's face flushed. You planned this. I scheduled a meeting at 6 in the morning. You scheduled therapy at 6 in the morning. She looked at the workers. They were no longer pretending not to watch. They were simply doing their jobs. Caleb moved closer. No one here thinks less of you. You cannot know that. No. Her left leg trembled. He remained several feet away. But you cannot build a center for people learning to move and treat your own body like a secret. Vivian looked at the rail. Her hands shook. Stay close. Caleb stepped nearer. Do not touch me unless I ask. I will not. Vivian took one step, then another. A carpenter measured a doorway. An electrician pulled wire through the ceiling. No one applauded. No one whispered. Vivian reached the end of the rail. She looked at Caleb. That was unbearable. You did it. That does not make it less unbearable. No. He offered her water. She accepted it. Thank you for not telling me I was brave. I was considering stubborn. That sounds more accurate. Their relationship grew inside moments no camera recorded. Vivian ate takeout in Caleb's apartment while Lily explained why boxed macaroni needed exactly 7 minutes, not 8. Caleb replaced a loose wheel on Vivian's walking frame while she reviewed patient access agreements. Lily rebuilt her nerve cell project with materials from the Hawthorne laboratory and insisted Vivian paint the cell body. Vivian painted it the wrong shade of purple. Lily made her start again. One Sunday evening, Vivian stood in Caleb's kitchen and opened the wrong cabinet. She found 2 coffee mugs sitting side by side. One was chipped near the handle. The other was clean and rarely used. Caleb entered behind her. Vivian closed the cabinet. I am sorry. It is a cabinet. I know. He leaned against the counter. She looked toward Rachel's photograph. I do not want to compete with her. Caleb's face changed. You are not. Then what am I doing here? The laundromat machines rumbled beneath the floor. Rain tapped against the kitchen window. Caleb looked at the chair where Vivian's walking frame rested, then at her. You are making the apartment feel less like a place where Lily and I are waiting. Vivian took one step toward him. Caleb did not move away. Her fingers touched the front of his shirt. He lifted one hand toward her face. For a moment, the distance between them nearly disappeared. Then Caleb stepped back. Vivian lowered her hand. Was that because of Rachel? No. Because I am your chief executive? No. Because I cannot walk without a frame? His eyes sharpened. Do not do that. Do what use your injury to answer a question you are afraid to ask. Vivian looked away. Caleb's voice softened. I stepped back because wanting this feels like losing control. She looked at him again. I understand that. I do not know how to bring someone into Lily's life and promise she will not disappear. You cannot promise that. I know. Vivian touched the edge of the counter. I am not asking you to. He looked at her. She continued. I am asking you not to decide for me because fear feels safer than choice. Caleb said nothing. Vivian collected her frame. I should go. He watched her reach the door. Vivian. She stopped. He almost crossed the room. Almost. I will see you tomorrow. Vivian nodded. Tomorrow. 2 weeks later, a tabloid published photographs of Vivian leaving Caleb's apartment. The headline called him the maintenance man who rescued his way into the executive suite. The article described Lily as part of a carefully staged public image. By noon, reporters stood outside the laundromat. By evening, 2 parents at Lily's school had complained about media attention. Caleb read the article once. Then he packed the files from his office. Vivian found him before he reached the elevator. What are you doing, leaving? No. He continued placing folders into the box. The reporters followed Lily to school. I have security handling it. She should not need security. This is not your fault. It is happening because of me. It is happening because someone sold photographs. Caleb closed the box. I will resign. The attention moves away from her. And from me. You are used to it. Vivian stared at him. You do not get to decide what I am used to. This is hurting you. No, you leaving without letting me choose would hurt me. Caleb lifted the box. Vivian stepped in front of the door. Move. No. Vivian, you carried me because I could not walk. That does not mean you get to decide where I am allowed to go now. This is different. It is exactly the same. He stopped. Vivian's voice shook. You see danger and you carry everyone away from it. You never ask whether they wanted to leave. I am protecting Lily. Then protect Lily with me. The word silenced him. Vivian looked at the box. Do not make abandonment sound noble. Caleb's grip loosened. The accusation reached further than she intended. She saw it in his face. Caleb. He placed the box on the floor. Rachel did not leave. I know, she died. I know, I could not save her. Vivian moved closer. I know. He looked at her with years of anger and grief held behind his eyes. I keep thinking if I choose carefully enough, no one else will disappear. Vivian reached for his hand. You cannot love people by preventing every risk. His fingers closed around hers. No. You can stay. Caleb looked down at their hands. Then he lifted her fingers to his mouth and pressed a quiet kiss against them. It was not the kiss either of them had imagined. It was smaller, more honest. The box remained on the floor. 1 year after the fire, the Rachel Rowan Center opened. There was no champagne. Patients, nurses, firefighters, engineers, maintenance workers, military families, and children filled the renovated floor. A simple sentence stood beneath the center's name. No one should be priced out of the chance to move with dignity. Lily held the ribbon scissors. Caleb stood beside her in a dark blue shirt. Vivian entered using her walking frame. The room grew quiet. She crossed the floor at her own pace. When she reached the ribbon, Lily handed her one side of the scissors. You do the first cut. Vivian looked at Caleb. This was your idea. The center was yours. Rachel was yours. Caleb looked toward the sign. No, his voice softened. She belonged to herself. Vivian nodded. Together, she and Lily cut the ribbon. Applause filled the room. Later, after the guests moved into the treatment areas, Vivian stood beside the therapy rail. Caleb remained several feet away. She removed the powered support from her left leg and placed both hands on the rail. Lily sat near the wall with Dr. Lawson. Vivian took one step. Her knee trembled. She stopped. The room became quiet. Caleb did not move. Vivian took another step, then another. At the end of the rail, she released one hand. Caleb offered his. He did not reach far enough to take hers. Vivian had to choose the remaining distance. She placed her hand in his. "The first night we met, you carried me." Caleb smiled. "You were having a difficult evening. I have been trying to walk back to you ever since. You could have called. I did." She looked at him. "You kept pretending the meetings were about floor plans." Lily made an impatient motion from across the room. Caleb glanced toward her. "She is becoming less subtle. She was never subtle." Vivian looked back at him. He lifted one hand and touched her cheek. "Are you sure?" Vivian glanced at her trembling leg. Then she met his eyes. "I am done confusing certainty with strength." Caleb kissed her. The room did not erupt. No one shouted. Lily clapped once, then covered her mouth when Dr. Lawson looked at her. Vivian laughed against Caleb's shoulder. He kept one hand near her waist without holding her up. When the center finally emptied that evening, Lily ran ahead toward the elevator. Vivian walked beside Caleb using her frame. He reached automatically toward her elbow. She raised one eyebrow. Caleb withdrew his hand. Vivian took 2 more steps. Then she reached for him. Their fingers interlocked. "I did not say I wanted to do everything alone." Caleb looked at her. "Good." He glanced toward Lily waiting at the elevator doors. "Neither did I." They continued.